I'd like to call this meeting of the Clay County Commission to order. We will begin with our invocation. Madam Administrator, when you're prepared, please proceed.
Please join with me in an attitude of prayer. Father, we've appreciated getting a chance to have a few more days of warm weather and the opportunity to enjoy these final days of beauty of the trees. We have taken advantage of being outdoors to enjoy the sunshine and to take care of that chore of raking up those leaves. Our minds are turning to Thanksgiving in the hopes of being actually to be able to gather this year. We are looking forward to seeing our friends and our families this year. At the same time, we mourn the loss of those that we can no longer have with us. We are grateful and proud that we live in a community with caring people, and we are humbled to be of service to this community. We pray for safe visits and travels to everyone in the upcoming weeks. In his blessed name, amen.
Amen. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please call the roll. Here.
Mr. Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Carpenter.
Here.
That brings us to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion for approval of today's agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
Motion has been made for the approval of today's agenda. Discussion. I have two sets of changes that I would like to bring before the commission. The first one was a request from the Sheriff's Department. They would request that the item under discussion items, co-location of the dispatch, and also under regular agenda 2021 311 and 312 be removed from today's agenda and heard at a later date. With that, I will just say that they request more time to prepare the information that they would like to submit to us. So I think that's a pretty reasonable request. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Thompson?
I close. No. Oh, I guess that's your amendment. So no, no discussion. Sorry, I'm in the
That's
middle
okay.
of writing.
Commissioner Carpenter?
No discussion, thanks.
Very well. Seeing no further discussion, I will close. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson. Yes. Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
Thank you. The second alteration from today's agenda involves a request from the auditor. He would like us to consider a new item, 2021-319. Those are printed up, and just for the purposes of discussion, if they could be distributed. As everybody, well, not everybody knows, but as certainly commissioners know, we have renegotiated our certificate of deposit, certificate of participation bonds. What the auditor is requesting is that we go ahead and take up the idea of filling out a form from the banks so that those bills can be paid. Those bonds, of course, are largely at this point to pay for bridges and other kinds of infrastructure improvements. Those projects are underway, bills are being generated, and to keep the emergency is to keep construction going as we enter into less hospitable weather. We want to get these bridges up and going as quickly as possible. With that, as the commissioners are looking over the proposed issue 2021-319, I'd like to go ahead and recognize the auditor to go ahead and maybe give a little bit more explanation on why we need to take this up today. Not so much on the the resolution itself, but why we should be hearing it today and what the nature of the emergency is, because we would be hearing it and passing it today so that it can get enacted quickly. So please proceed.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioners. Victor Herbert, Clay County Auditor. What this is, we passed something similar to this in February, and that was just updating who is an authorized representative to sign requisition forms for all of our bonds. The former one had to do with the remainder of 2018 bonds that we've refunded. This one is for our new 2021B bonds, which, as the Presiding Commissioner noted, is essentially for bridge projects and then the HVAC admin and other general projects. So essentially, the bonds close today, that $6.1 million, they're available to spend, and UMB needs this form in order for us to start paying on those. And we have been waiting. We've had a time lag from when we refunded the 2018 to issue this new money on those projects that we had already obligated or incurred, those major bridge projects. And I'll let Deputy Administrator Carl Walters speak more about the nature of, how much invoices we have, as well as the work that's been done. And as I understand, this is important for BRO reimbursement for us to stay eligible with that program, that we make timely payments. So with that, Deputy Administrator Walters.
Thank you. Please proceed, Deputy Administrator.
Good afternoon, Commission. Carl Walters, Deputy Administrator of Clay County. The importance of this is that we've had outstanding bills that we have brought forth to be paid, and we're talking, substantial money. We also have engineering services that we need to have paid that get this cleared up so we can get this sent down to MoDOT, get some of our monies back, for the bills that we have. We got 188th Street that's getting ready to put the deck on and stuff, but they put a hold on what's going on. We just now let the one on Greenwood Road go. I'm sure that they're going to have some kind of payment coming here forth before long, and then we also have the one that's open there on 148th Street. So it's a concern that we need to keep these things going so we can keep these people still bidding in years to come on these bridges as well, so to make it good. I think it's important.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the Commission?
I do have one question.
Please
I think
proceed.
it would be more appropriate for the auditor. I just want to make sure, these are the same. You said we did a very similar document like this back in February, at the beginning of the year. Are the same expenditure, people, is it the same from that document? We haven't added any new people, or is it the same as what was previously?
We've added a couple people. Commissioner, we added the 2 deputy county administrators. The last one done in February had just the administrator, commissioners, and clerk. So we did add those. The reason being, in the case of an absence or lag in our administrator, the deputies could sign for the county. So those are the 2 changes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Okay. Acting Administrator, do you have any comments that you would like to make on this issue at this time?
No, but I would like to also reiterate what Deputy County Administrator Carl Walters said, because I'm actively involved in the HVAC project that was awarded earlier in the year based upon the previous bond schedule, that we have obligated ourselves to some projects, and then we do need to be able to honor and pay those in a timely manner.
Very good. Mr. Counselor, obviously for us to take up this, to place it on the agenda and to, as I will likely be proposing in a few moments, that we then pass this particular resolution, do you see this as being in compliance with our sunshine law obligations as far as the emergency nature of what we are about to do?
I do, Commissioner. And again, the first vote you're going to take is simply to add it to your agenda.
That is correct.
Then you'll take up in the agenda whether to pass it or put it on to next week or some other action with it.
Right. So when I put it on regular agenda, you're right, I misspoke a little bit there. We won't be voting on it now. We will just vote to put it on the agenda. Then when it comes up in its place in the regular agenda, then we will be voting an up or a down as opposed to either consent or regular agenda.
I think that would be the request, as I understand it.
Yes.
The vote could be, if anyone wants to just put it on for next week, they could. They could remove it. They could table it. I mean, any action. I mean, it'll just be on your regular agenda. Mm-hmm. Any of the options available to you at that point, will be available.
So really, the thing is to get on the agenda, and then when it comes up, we can drill down a little more deeply and make sure that is, make sure we end up doing what is the proper way.
That's right.
Very good. That said, is there any comment from the public on this issue? Seeing none. I move that we place 2021-319 on today's regular agenda, and we'll just put it on at the end, unless there is a request to do otherwise. With that, I'll open it up for discussion on the motion to amend our agenda day. Commissioner Thompson, do you have anything you'd like to say? Commissioner Carpenter?
No, just obviously these are important projects and support the motion.
Very good. With that, I close. Please call the roll.
Yes?
Yes.
That, those are the two issues I had. Now we go back to the underlying motion from Commissioner Thompson for the approval of the agenda, now approval of the agenda as amended. Is there any further discussion or any other changes contemplated? Very well, Commissioner Thompson, you are recognized for any comments and close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. That brings us to business meetings. Acting Administrator?
Yes, Commissioners, just a reminder that due to our Thanksgiving holiday next week, we are not meeting next week. So the next business session is scheduled for Wednesday, December 1st at 6 p.m.
Thank you. And apart from the fact that we will not be meeting, what days will the offices be closed again? I think you might have mentioned it, but I just want to make sure it gets repeated.
Well, I don't have my schedule with me right now, Commissioner, but
That's okay. Well, I'm pretty confident we're not open on Thanksgiving Day.
we are not open. We are closed on next Thursday and Friday.
Very good. I just wanted to make sure that we got that out there so a citizen would not inadvertently show up and expect to do business. That brings us to honorary resolutions. We have one set of honorary resolutions. Acting Administrator?
Yes, we have here with us our Deputy County Administrator, Carl Walters, to speak, and we have some other representatives from the Highway Department for this as well.
Very good. Please proceed.
Thank you, Commission. Carl Walters, Deputy Director of Administrations for Clay County. A resolution for the Clay County Commission of whereas the primary purpose of the Missouri Local Technical Assistance Scholars Program is to recognize skills transportation and public works personnel in the local agencies throughout the Missouri. And whereas the program is intended to enhance the skills of all those involved into the maintenance and delivery of management and local infrastructure, and the training is aimed to increase each participant technical maintenance, administrative, and supervisory skills. And to whereas to earn the designation of the Road Scholar Level 1, the participant is required to successfully complete core courses, which is 3, work safety, work zone flag training, and in communication skills. And then we have the elective courses, which there is 11 to choose from, and they're required to have 5. I brought forth to you 4 highway employees that have completed this task. One, as if you would stand, please, William Stacy, which has completed the course of culvert install maintenance, equipment operation, safety, snow control, chainsaw, and chip seal. We also have James Spees, which has completed chip seal, equipment operations, snow, motor grader, and ice control and chip seal practices. We also have Austin Novicki, which has also completed the culvert installation and maintenance, equipment operation, safety, snow, ice control, motor grader best practices, chip seal best practices. And we also have Kyle Ditchler, which has also completed culvert installation maintenances, equipment operations, safety, snow, ice control, motor grader best practices, and chainsaw safeties. As this program has brought forth us since 2017 that we can remember, what happens is they get recognition with a certificate, and they also, did anybody bring a jacket of that quality? Well, I would show you the jacket. It is a mole-tap jacket that is high-vis, and they were all, since they completed that, they get one of those jackets. And thank you guys very much for your work well done, which helps them out on the county roads to help better ourselves with the citizens in Clay County. So.
I'm going to go ahead and ask for any comments from the commissioners, then Assistant Deputy Administrator, excuse me, I'll go ahead and give you their certificates if you want to pass them out, and then we maybe can get a picture in front of the flag. Does that make sense? Very well. So let's go ahead and proceed that way. So Commissioner Carpenter, would you like to make any comments on these honorary resolutions?
Just to say congrats on the certificates, the recognition, the jackets, all of it, but mostly thanks for, the work every day y'all do for the citizens of the county, and appreciate you. Thanks.
Commissioner Thompson?
I'll keep this short as well, but no, congratulations on the completion of this. This is great news, and you guys are going to be helping being the backbone of Clay County and keeping our roads safe. So you're my favorite people right now, so especially with winter coming. So if you need anything, you come talk to us.
Thank you very much for the time and the effort you put in on those. Certainly, a well-trained workforce is absolutely vital to keep our system going, and your participation certainly is appreciated to do your part to make sure you're as well-trained as possible. With that, we'll go ahead and stand at ease for a moment, and then we'll go ahead and get some pictures, and then we will come back and pick up our agenda from there. Okay, as we resume our business, I also want to point out and express our thanks to Deputy Administrator Walters, because that's, while these gentlemen did a lot of the hard work of getting in there, certainly hard work needs to have good leadership, and we certainly appreciate the Deputy Administrator's leadership in these issues. Okay, that brings us to discussion items. The co-located dispatch has been removed. That brings us to 2022 proposed budget team. Acting Administrator.
Yes, Commissioner. We have with us to address this, we have our County Auditor, Victor Hurlbert. We have part of his finance team. We have Kathy Minton, and we have the Deputy for the Auditor's Department, Benjamin Pedersen, here to speak on this issue.
Please proceed when you are ready.
All right, good afternoon, Commission. This is Victor Hurlbert, Clay County Auditor. I'm going to stay over here just in case I can access anything with any questions. But this is going to be a discussion with the Commission about the 2022 proposed budget. We're going to have a slideshow here. And as you know, our administrator right now and budget officer is Tom Salisbury. But the budget team, as we mentioned, as Administrator Kuntz mentioned, includes the auditor's office and the administrator. And yes, we have our chief deputy auditor, Benjamin Pedersen, running our slideshow and over here, and I have finance specialist too, Kathy Minton. I just wanted to recognize them, as well as who's not here behind the scenes, Michael Reynolds, our finance manager. Just a lot of the hours and months that went into developing this product for you here today. So just want to recognize them as well. So turning to, and you should have these presentations on your desk as well to take notes. I'm going to try to keep my comments fairly limited, but feel free to stop me at any point or ask questions after. I want this to be an open dialogue with the commission. This presentation is for you, the commission, to understand and guide us on the budget. So with that, what we're doing today is essentially a new process. We wanted to take some of the lessons we developed in crafting this year's budget and include that in this year. So typically in years past, the proposed budget has been delivered to the clerk of the commission and the commission, and nothing was said about it until it was an adopted budget. And there might be some meetings on an individual department level, but not really on a holistic level. So I'm really excited about this process to be more transparent and go over the budget with you all today. Another thing on the third bullet point there is essentially, before this meeting, we emailed the commission in advance and notified the public, made this available to the public, the budget. We also let the departments know what their budgets would be and asked them if they had any concerns or feedback for us, so we can make sure to be aware of that as we go into this presentation. And we did have some, mostly salary worksheet position title descriptions, I think, were from a number of departments, something we wanted to update to what they feel like what that title should be, but nothing really from a material dollar impact from what we heard back, just so you're aware of that. From here, just to let you know, we have by statute delivered the proposed budget by November 15th. You can't have a public hearing within 10 days of that. We delivered it on the 10th. But we are scheduled on your next meeting to have that public hearing, an opportunity for citizens to come and make comment on the budget, on the proposed budget documents. And then the plan would be, subject to commission approval, adopting the budget within that first 10 days time frame when there's no change in the commission on your Wednesday, January 5th meeting. The reason we want to do that is so we know the actual year-end cash figures. That way we're not estimating and trying to pass before and then have to come to you months later and do a true-up. We want to know what the actual budget's going to be as early as we can, so departments have an operational understanding. So that's really the plan we are looking at. One other thing I want to mention before we move to the next slide is the Auditor's Office is working on a new concept called a digital budget book. And so with the adopted budget, we want to make this available to the citizens instead of this, three-ring binder, which it's a good internal tool for us to understand and plan, but something for the citizens' benefit to be able to click through in a real technologically savvy way and understand our budget with the years of history, graphics, and joining the Government Finance Officers Association, the digital budget book, is something called a Distinguished Budget Award that we're seeking. So we want to be kind of on a national peer level in that respect. So just to make you aware, that's what we're striving to also deliver to you with the adopted budget. So with that, let's move to the next page. We'll talk about some highlights of this budget. I'll turn your attention to really the start of your budget book, the budget letter, a critical piece designed with the budget officer and the budget team. As you can see, we started this process about 5 months ago. We opened up the accounting system to departments to make their requests. They did that. They had over a month and a half to do so. We took those requests into account, looked at the estimated revenues from my office, and then came up with a balanced budget. That's what's presented to you today. We kept the same process with departments that we had when we adopted the 2021 budget, where we met with them, had held 21 meetings, and we wanted feedback as to, if you want increases from your existing level, please help us prioritize the reasons for those requests and help us understand those. Ultimately, what we got down to, as those 6 bullet points in this budget letter describe, is we really didn't increase many departments from their 2021 budget levels, but we took a vastly different approach from this year, where we did a lot of right-sizing, as we called it, with a lot of departments. So I think that's a big plus and win for this proposed budget for next year, is we're not cutting departments. We're keeping them steady and adding where we can. And more of that happens in different funds than the general fund, where the departments have a different situation. So, but the other 6 points there, major things in this budget. Obviously, commission approved no change to employee health care premiums. That was a big policy plank for this budget. a 2% COLA for all employees, a reduction in annual debt service after we refunded the 2018 bonds. We realize more of those savings in future years as the interest goes down. You pay more interest up front, but we are starting to realize that, and we'll realize that more over a decade. A lot of the long-term capital projects, and we can turn to that for attention on those. But before I get there, let me just speak a minute about revenues. 2021 was a strong year for sales tax revenue. We conservatively estimated what the revenues will be for 2022 because this was such a banner year. And that allows us to really, along with conservatively estimated revenues, when we get to carryover, when we get to year end, we're able to add anything to reserves. Beyond that, for sales tax, going up to essentially $43 million from $39.5 million last year overall. With property tax, we are seeing less and less dependency on that, more dependency on sales tax, the reason being we had to do the sales tax rollback with the general fund levy. So that's really a situation with revenues overall. Well, let's talk about the capital projects, if we can, a bit on the budget letter. And this is on the second page, where it really just identifies all those capital projects. So we begin, it's $14.2 million of capital projects. With the highway fund, you have $6.4 million. Most of that is going to be your 2021 B bonds, which we just discussed, $6.1 million for the bridges. And we'll discuss these as we go fund by fund as well to reiterate and reinforce, but just to give you a high level. In the Fund 301 use tax, we are funding a salt dome replacement because it is in disrepair and needed. In the sheriff's office, we do have essentially $1 million in capital to be used for vehicle replacement. They did get that grant for dedicated impaired driving and vehicles for those. Beyond that, in the Parks Fund, you have $648,000. Some big policy objectives here I would turn your attention to because of park requests. We're looking at removing some vacant county staff houses, which has been a controversial matter in this county before. Repairing, or replacing, I should say, the Camp Branch Maintenance Building, repairing the Parks Office. Instead of doing an entire bond project and a new build on the Parks Office, we're repairing what we have. Turning to the airport, most of that $4.2 million capital project figure is for the runway project. As we know, it's a $4 million grant. But we are also funding some repairs to fuel trucks, as the airport requested, and we'll go through the details on that. And the last part, other capital, I really want to spend some time here. There are some exciting advancements that we're doing this in the proposed budget that we have right now. Those include refurbishing the prosecutor office furniture. Our understanding in department meetings with the prosecutor's office is that they have furniture that's decades old from the 90s and could really use some refreshing. We met with the presiding judge. They had some other audio-video upgrades besides what we already did with rescue plan, so we accommodated those in the use tax. The GIS accommodated some of their technological and capital needs. A juvenile security entrance system. For some reason, this has not been done in several years, despite being a request, and we're doing that. We're also staffing that with 2 security sheriff deputies, one funded in the juvenile payroll system, one funded in the sheriff payroll system. So that's an exciting development. We're keeping other facilities capital level. You also have a facilities HVAC admin project with the bonds. So spend some time on capital there, just to let you know those are things that are different from your usual operational needs in any given budget. So I just wanted to highlight that for you. Other than that, we are able to propose a $200,000 or 12.5% increase in reserve funds. This is mostly from your contingency reserve fund, which is required in statute to have 3% of general fund revenues in a contingency reserve that can only be touched by a unanimous vote. We had to increase that largely because of increase in general fund revenues, especially we included the airport grant that we are going to cash flow through the general fund, and also increased our rainy day slightly. Not as much as we wanted to, but a little. So the total budget overall, if you look at your third page of the budget letter, which is just a good synopsis, I think, for the public and the commission to see how everything works, where the money comes from, where it goes, you have essentially $142 million in expenditure budget, but on an operational basis, more like 84 million. Another way to look at that, I would call it 106 million if you reduce federal stimulus, one-time bonds, and internal transfers to other funds. It could be looked at less if you think of healthcare internal transfers since we self-insure, but nevertheless, we're roughly have grown our budget a little bit just based on more revenues. And the economic context, I made some mentions about the strength of the county's census growth and continue to grow the economy. Okay, so there's some overall pictures I just wanted to describe there, but let's go now on a fund-by-fund level. We're only going to look at the major funds, and then I'll open up to questions, but I just wanted to give more explanation than what's been presented. So let's turn to the general fund. So in the general fund, right off the bat, the first department is the auditor's office, and essentially we have, as we're already operationally doing work, we combined and merged with the finance department, the former finance department. So we combined those, but I actually, through the total funds combined in 2021, we're proposing to reduce that 20% or $200,000 in next year's budget. The reason being, we just really don't need a lot of that. What was in there, you had some, the Ed Quick building, we own that now, so we're not paying lease on that. We don't have as much accounting and consulting, and we had just too much lease budget for our copier lease, so we reduced that for a savings for the county. We did provide some merit raise dollars for the clerk's office upon request. So at the clerk's discretion with approval of administration, those can be enforced. I want to draw attention to the medical examiner budget. It has gone up 33%, $618,000. Now, I think this is less than what options we were looking at years before, what we were previously working with, but that's something I think the commission should be aware of. And finally, we did a lot of administrative mergers where we took the risk management safety department and a new manager from HR, and that's now under the administrator. The former public services and tourism departments are now also under the administrator. And so that was just some things we wanted to consolidate and make clear and move on from former days. The next slide for general fund. I want to talk about outside agencies. We held those steady at $313,000. We did have two agencies request a little more funds, about $35,000 in total. We didn't think it fair in working with the budget officer to accommodate those and not other departments that we're keeping steady across the county. So that was the rationale for keeping that steady. However, rescue plan guidance does allow for funding for nonprofits to do the sorts of things both of these agencies do. So we made available the application process to request those funds. And so when those come in, we'll bring that to the commission's attention. The election board, one thing that's of note, in even years, you're going to have higher election costs, but for some reason, our election costs had been stagnant or steady at around over a couple $100,000. So to meet the even year election need, which is when we have higher election costs, it's at $500,000 for next year. Obviously, this year is a little bit higher just because of some special elections we had. Other things to note in general fund, we are, like as I mentioned, cash flowing the 90%, or it's a matching grant. It's a 90-10 matching grant, which means we have to pay 10, and then we're going to get 90 for 90, 1 for 1. So what we're doing, because the airport fund just isn't going to be able to accommodate a $3.6 million spend, the general fund will float that, and then they'll be fully reimbursed for it. $3.6 million in, 3.6 out, 3.6 in, And, and that's been done before in the Airport Operations Fund, so that's just something to be aware of in the general fund. Moving on to the Highway Fund, Fund 220, another major fund. Essentially something to bear in mind here, and Chief Deputy has made comment of this, something I think county should be aware of is we have a continuing obligation from road district settlements where we have to make up for our levy. Our road levy continues to go down. It should bring in substantially the same revenue, less inflation per the Hancock Amendment, but the agreements peg what we are to pay the road districts at 14 cents, and it never changes. So what you find yourself in is more and more, we are having to give more and more of our road and bridge fund to the road districts. And that's, that's up for the commission to, choose. I just want to bring that to your attention of essentially all of our road and bridge levy is going to the road districts. So in order to do anything more for the road and bridge fund, it has to be supplemented by sales tax. And part of those agreements include a sales tax payment annually right now of $1 million. And so we are increasing that sales tax transfer in order to meet that payment. So that's just something in highway we're proposing next year. We're able to increase some operational costs, however, to the 701 road and maintenance and construction, contractual and commodities by about $140,000. We did not include estimated BRO grant revenue from highway. The reason being we had an issue with that in 2020 where it did not come in. Essentially, the explanation is because we didn't have bids on projects. And so we wanted to be conservative and not count on that. However, if it comes in, most certainly what we will do is reappropriate at that time for more bridge projects. So that's the plan with the highway fund at present. So again, because of the funding restrictions in that fund, a lot of operational needs are shifted to the use tax highway fund 301. With that, we turn to some stimulus programs, the rental programs, Fund 221, 222. We have and plan to get out all program costs with the funds we have now to the nonprofits by the end of the year. So what we've budgeted is essentially the administrative portions. We just haven't been billed by all the nonprofits for their admin costs yet, and so that's why we're carrying that over, so to speak. The American Rescue Plan Act, I want to spend some time here, Fund 224. As you recall, we initially split that evenly among eligible uses like COVID response, economic recovery, and infrastructure, infrastructure being water, sewer, and broadband. So what we did is essentially take what we've spent and then rolled over the balance to next year. So that's what we've kept. Obviously, that's up for commission to change upon needs. But I think what we've done here is really taking a proactive approach in the Rescue Plan Fund to look at budget requests from the county and include those in this budget, pending your approval when they come to you for individual submission, but also flexibility so that it's not completely allocated. You can make changes because as we know, this goes all the way through the end of 2024. Many things can change by then. But when that second tranche comes in next year, we will reallocate at that time. We want to make sure we have our ducks in a row when we do that. But some things to highlight on those eligible uses. With COVID response, we did, as I mentioned, put in that additional nonprofit funding requests. Those might actually be economic recovery based upon the guidance and what the actual request is, where that actually falls. So, but in infrastructure, this being water, sewer, or broadband, we had some requests from parks of about $735,000, including cleanup at KCTA for some hazardous waste that can get into the water system. We put that in the rescue plan as something we could budget, again, pending your approval. So instead of trying to fund this with regular county money, we can shift these capital projects to these federal dollars. Same with economic recovery. We actually put tourism and advertising there to start that again, and we can look at matching dollars from the state with that, not the federal. But that's something that different jurisdictions are looking at using rescue plan money for. The state is making that available. And we also moved $3.35 million in parks repair and maintenance requests that were requested in the budget to the American Rescue Plan. Most of those are trail maintenance, which is an eligible use. If you had damage, you can do repair on your trails because of higher visitation to parks and other uses. Moving that, let's turn to parks. Parks has had strong revenues in 2020 and 21, just given the pandemic, and because of that, they're in a strong cash position, so we don't have to supplement them as much from general fund sales tax revenues, and so that was reduced this year. A lot of the decrease, too, was the fact that the rangers were moved to the sheriff's office as a lake unit, so that reduces how much has to be subsidized, and it's basically shift one for one from parks to sheriff's office. But some things we were able to do due to the strong position of parks is they requested electricity to Phoebus, $30,000, a building repairs line, a restroom at Ferris Farm was requested, something that customers had sought, and a vehicle, an outdated vehicle replacing that for the James Farm operation. So let's turn to the sheriff's office, and obviously this is a large component, major component of the Clay County budget. Ultimately, the bottom line is we did increase roughly 10% of the sheriff's office budget in 2022 from 2021. But the reason we really did this is just to meet current needs. And when I say that, first of all, the major component is the park rangers to the lake unit. That was a large increase right there. And then just funding the 2021 COLA of 2%, as well as the health insurance costs, is what gets us to that figure. Now, we did double their capital availability in use tax from roughly $500,000 to $1 million, and we did increase their contractual commodities by $168,245 after working with the sheriff's office, budget officer, and Captain Agderian to help us identify where we could balance and meet those requests. So again, that collaborative process to come to an understanding of what we can afford. And then lastly, a lot of requests from Sheriff's Office was to consolidate purchasing, centralize it, and so you'll see a lot of those non-personnel costs are going to be consolidated in the 556 Administration Department. The next slide for the Sheriff's Office, we did effectively budget grants, which had not been done fully in years past, so that helps with funding the fund. And there are many American Rescue Plan Act considerations for the Sheriff's Office to include eventually consolidated dispatch, detention center cameras, and as I've mentioned before to you, there's a bill before the United States House of Representatives to allow flexibility for the rescue plan up to $10 million. And so maybe that could be a resource center, or however the commission wants to use that, should that bill pass. So let's turn to the use tax funds. With our use tax funds, you're seeing more and more. This happened during the pandemic. It's going to happen in the future. But as we shift to more online spending, you're going to see the proportion between sales tax and use tax kind of change, in my opinion, where use tax will grow more as a proportion. But so we are really anticipating around $2.25 million in each fund because it's split evenly 3 ways as use tax comes in. You take that plus available cash in the fund, and that gives you your expenditure budget. Something to keep in mind in the use tax funds is you're going to have a debt service obligation to pay our bonds, and that's where the bonds are paid out of. So after you take into account the debt service, you're not left with a ton of money. So with the use tax fund in particular, you got a debt service of $1.1 million, but we were still able to do some of those things I already mentioned with capital projects, with all those departments from the juvenile security system and prosecutor furniture. And Fund 301, Highway, well, as I mentioned, has funded that salt storage shed, but the debt service is $871,000, so the rest of it is used for operational needs. And in the use tax parks, you have a debt service of roughly $2 million, so that makes things a little more challenging. It was calculated based on how much was spent from the former bonds and proportionally broken out that way. And essentially, we shifted a lot of the requests to the rescue plan because it's eligible, but we are able to do a lot of positive things, as I mentioned. We did have some vehicle and construction requests. It was about $1 million. We were able to accommodate $221,000. Only a couple more funds, and then I will stop talking. The bond construction fund, Fund 400. So I'm excited about this. We have never budgeted the bonds before, and we record it in the accounting system. We book it, but we haven't budgeted it, and so we did that this year in the 2022 budget. The new bond issuance of 2021B, you have $5.175 million to bridge projects, $925,000 plus I think $300 based on the latest I saw, is going to be to HVAC repair and other general projects or contingency. And so as that gets spent down for the remainder of this year, we'll give you a trued up figure for the 2022 budget. That will be the only change to the adopted. Finally, the airport fund, just want to mention, so as I mentioned, there's been a general fund operations department, 10920, that in the past has been a way for the county to supplement airport through payroll, other operational costs. Since 2020, airport has been a standalone self-funded fund, and that's how we continue to present it in 2022, except for, of course, the runway grant will be cash flowed for the what we get reimbursed out of general fund. I just bring that to your attention because we were not able to fund all the requests in airport fund. That was one different from, I would say, all the other funds in the general fund departments where we are slightly lower. And I think we were able to fund another fuel truck repair, but we weren't able to do everything we need, but everything that's available is used for operations. If the carryover picture changes drastically from here, we might be able to reevaluate that, but that's where we sit with the airport fund. So those are really our major funds. I didn't really cover a lot of statutory funds, but I wanted to give you a little more in-depth presentation on the budget. And as I mentioned, that's essentially our process and where we're at. So I'm happy to take any questions and the budget team as well.
Thank you very much. We certainly appreciate the presentation. One of the things that you'd pointed out was that this is different from past years. In all honesty, since the time I've been here, it seems like it's almost varied year to year, which makes it a little more challenging to keep a handle on what's being spent and on making sure that we are responsible stewards of the county's funds. I think one of the big things that I get coming out of this is we are in the process of constructing what will be a budget process going forward, which will be consistent year to year. Unfortunately, sometimes when you vary the process of how you budget from year to year, you do not have the opportunity to do a truly apple-to-apples kind of comparison as far as where spending goes. So if monies are moved around and expenses are moved around from different places, it's very hard to get a handle on that kind of inconsistency. So I think it's hard to overestimate the importance of the process that you've been working on, you and, of course, obviously the rest of the staff and the administrator, to make sure that we have a consistent procedure going forward, particularly since we are going to be, in about 2 more years, have an expanded commission, and that's going to make it even more challenging as we have new faces at this table to make sure that we have a consistent process in place that is understood from year to year. So I think the timing on this is not a moment too soon. Certainly appreciate that. Something else that kind of stood out was you were talking about the bonds being budgeted, which seems common sense. That combined with the added inclusion or the enhanced inclusion of the auditor's department and some of the other departments, treasurer's office, involved in this process, I think it's a very positive thing. It seemed to me during a lot of the process we've gone through in the past, we've not taken advantage of the talent that we have within this building, or certainly within this administration. Not everybody's in this building anymore. As you said, we have the Quick building. But the point being, we have a good number of talented people, and I think we are now getting into a position where we're taking advantage of those skills and talents and those fresh ideas. And I'm looking forward to seeing how we go through this process. Undoubtedly, we will be evaluating it next year, and thinking of ways to improve it, but we're on a road right now to where we are constructing that consistent policy that will, I think, make the process much more smooth, much more transparent. And then finally, I really like the idea of what you're talking about with the ability of putting the budget online so citizens can access this information. During the time I was here, one of the things that I was very dismayed at was the budget, when I first got here, was online, and it was word searchable. And at some point, it became, the documents became PDFs, which are not word searchable. I'm not sure I've got the technology correct, but in any case, you could no longer go onto the county's budget and do a word search if you want to know how much we were paying for a certain type of commodity or whatever. So the idea of getting a process in place that would be very user-friendly so citizens can reasonably easily, as much as we can, any of us can get in, can get a feel for the technology, but it increases the citizens' ability to see what it is we're doing with their money. So I think everything you said, I think, has been certainly right direction, certainly where we want to go, is in my estimation. So I'm looking forward to us working through this process. We seem to have a much cleaner scheduling idea of where we're going, so I certainly appreciate the leadership you've put forth, the administrator and everyone else involved, because it's this is a very, very different process than 2 years ago. Last year's process, as you know, was a little bit trying to put things together rather quickly as the transfer from one majority to the other was being made. So last year was a tough year, and we certainly appreciate what you were able to do there, but I think that what you're doing is laying the groundwork for a much smoother process. So I'm looking forward to how we come out on this. With that, would either of the other commissioners like to question or comment?
Sure, thanks. Just to extend my gratitude to the whole team for all the work. Look forward to going through this process with my fellow commissioners as well as the budget team. I also just, special thanks to Auditor Hurlbert, and wanted to ask both Benjamin and Kathy if there's anything they felt at this time they wanted to add to today's presentation, or if we're good to go going forward. Don't mean to put anybody on the spot. If not, it's perfectly fine, but just wanted to give that opportunity, and look forward to going forward.
I would like to say that I do feel that this process was a lot smoother.
Oh, could you go ahead and identify yourself for the recording, please?
Chief Deputy Auditor Benjamin Pedersen, excuse me.
Thank you.
I feel this was a very wonderful process that we were able to go through, a lot of collaboration. The communication between the departments has changed dramatically with the new commission. So we could reach out, talk to people, get their feedback, find out what things they really want to see changed, and just work through the process together so that the end product is an entire county collaboration and not just a team saying, here's your money, live with it. So I feel like that process was a big improvement for the county, a win for all the citizens to know that we're working together for the benefit of the entire county.
Any other comments from the team? No? Did you have anything else?
That's good for now. Thank you.
Commissioner Thompson, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I will be very short, I promise, but thank you. I want to say thank you to the whole entire budget team. You guys are wonderful, and everyone who took the time to put together our budget and putting this all together for us. And I love the little notes here. This makes it easy as I'm scouring my book and I'm trying to find them myself and highlight. The cheat sheet's always helpful. I will say I've heard from some of our outside agencies, and they have commended us on the approach that we've all taken for this year's budget. They said it has gone very smooth, and they really like it. So whatever you guys are doing, keep doing it, because everyone seems very happy with it. And so there's been no complaints to me. I just want to make sure that we're still going to have, the commission will be able to sit down and speak with any departments or outside agencies that may have a concern, or if they want to just see our faces. Do we still have that component will still be put in place? Because I do love all the new changes, don't get me wrong. I just want to make sure we're not taking away anything that we've been doing.
I think this is Victor Hurlbert, Clay County Auditor. I think we could offer that. So as my chief deputy, mentioned, I think, in years past, the process has been essentially, proposed budget is delivered and then departments know nothing about it, and they have to go search for it, and then they're notified some, weeks, months later, this is your budget. And so then that becomes a, potential controversy, and that's when meetings are requested with the commission. And, this year for sure was a different process where, again, we had to right size a lot of departments and actually cut where they're from. And so, this year we did not reduce any from the 2021 level, but that said, not every request was accommodated. So in our verbiage of sending out the budgets for this year, the proposed budget, about a week before this presentation, we asked if they had any concerns or to let us know. And so that's why I mentioned at the beginning, most of those were salary worksheet titles, just the names of the title. So we don't really know of any requests for specific meetings. Certainly if if departments or agencies want to have those, I think with the administrator sending the agenda, we could certainly do those. If commission would like to direct us to do that, we can make a more direct request to meet with the commission, and we can do that. Currently, it's not, as I said with the schedule, just with where we're at now, we're looking at the public hearing on the 1st and then adopting on the 5th. So if we wanted to do something like that, it doesn't necessarily have to fall on one of the commission meeting schedules. You could have a special meeting and do that. The only other thing I'd say is we did have 21 meetings right after Labor Day in September and worked with them on what was an acceptable request. But we're open to going down that process if that's the will of the commission. But that's just the route we went with this year.
No, I understand. I just want to make sure, and everybody might just be very content and they don't necessarily want a meeting with us, but I just don't want to take anything away in case they want to. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Are there any other persons who would like to participate in this discussion? Are there any comments from the public at this time? Seeing none, that concludes our discussion of the 2020 proposed budget, and we will, as mentioned, be having that for a public hearing on the 1st. There are no public hearings scheduled for today. There are no items on the consent agenda. That brings us to regular agenda. The first three items are grouped together: 2021 307, 308, and 309. Acting Administrator, please proceed when you are ready.
Yes, Commissioner. This is a rezoning, a preliminary plat, and a final plat for the Corson Country View Estates. And we have our Planning and Zoning Manager, Kip Jones, to address.
Please proceed.
Kip Jones, Planning and Zoning Manager. So I'm going to have a couple maps up here in a minute for you, but I'll go over the case and the request first. So this is a rezoning preliminary and final plat for Corson Country View. It's located at approximately 19610 Northeast 116th Street. It's approximately 14 acres, and he's got it up there now. It's outlined in the yellow. It's one 14-acre lot as it exists now. The proposal is to subdivide it into two lots. There would be a roughly 4.07-acre lot on the left side of the screen and a 10-acre lot on the right side. The 10-acre lot does have a single-family home currently. The 4-acre lot does not have any structures, and the purpose of creating that 4-acre lot is to allow the property owner's daughter to build one single-family house. So we're talking one additional lot for one single-family house. This lot is located in the rural low-density tier. The reason that is relevant is the county's divided into 3 tiers. That tier will at least guide us on what size lot should be done in that area. In the rural low-density tier, our guide is that we should do a 5+ acre lot. So technically we have a 4-acre lot here. We look at several different things when we look at the lot size. And Carter, if you can go to the other map, please. I want to show you the surrounding area. So the subject parcel's outlined in the yellow there, and then right across the street to the west, almost where he has his arrow, there are 4 lots that are between 1 acre and 2 acres apiece. And then to the south west, there's a subdivision that has lots that are between 3 and 5 acres. So it's not out of the norm to have lots that are less than 5 acres in this area. Another exception would be is if the property is within a city, within 1 mile of a city. You can see that both Mosby and the city of Kearney are within a mile of this subject parcel. We reached out to both those cities. Mosby did not respond with any comments. Kearney submitted a letter stating that this is outside their comprehensive plan and that the city would not oppose the 4-acre lot. We noticed this case in the Courier Tribune and sent certified letters. We did not receive any opposition from adjacent property owners. The applicant received all their outside agency approvals, and like I said, there was no opposition during the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. The discussion at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting amongst the members were about the size of the lot and the configuration of the 4-acre lot. After that discussion, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted to approve the case. They reviewed the rezoning standards, which are on page 1 and 2 of the transmittal, and the requirements of the 2011 Land Development Code. The Planning and Zoning Commission felt this property was unique enough and met those 5 rezoning criteria to recommend approval. The vote was 5-0 to recommend approval of the rezoning preliminary and final with a couple conditions you can see in Exhibit A, and those are just a couple changes to the recording copy of the final plat. I would be happy to answer any questions the commissioners may have, and the applicant is present as well.
Okay. How long the smaller lots that are in existence, is that something that is a relatively recent development, or have they been there for some time?
They've been there for quite a while. They were done under previous regulations. So, you know, initially staff had recommended denial because of that lot size. We recommended denial to the Planning and Zoning Commission. You know, as far as staff goes, we look at that 5-acre minimum, and I've kind of drawn the line at we need to be 4.5 acres or larger. The applicant came in with a 4-acre lot. But like I said, the Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the area, reviewed those 5 rezoning criteria, and recommended approval. I would say my recommendation at this point would be to follow the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation and recommend approval.
There seems to be a body of water in the middle of the lot.
Yes, there is a pond right there that would stay on the 10-acre lot. And then if you can go back to the other one, please. Just to the west there, to the left, you see that black line running north and south? That's the property line right there, between the 4-acre lot and the 10-acre lot.
The reason I was asking about that, I wasn't sure if that contributed to the ability to be able to be in compliance and have a 5-acre lot, because it's in the center, it's a pretty decent percentage of the lot, and it seems to me that would be a limiting and a mitigating factor in the 5 acres.
It does. That property line could have been slid a little bit to the east to get closer to the 5 acres. We typically ask for a 50-foot separation between the pond and any property line. That way it gives the property owner a little bit of room to do maintenance on the pond. But it does play a role, definitely.
Commissioner Thompson, do you have any questions or comments?
So you said there's no opposition, but there's no opposition to the size of the lot. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And your recommendation is to approve this?
I would recommend that you go with the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation, yes.
Okay. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Carpenter?
No questions, thanks.
Okay. If the applicants are present, do they have anything that they would like to say? Now, it's not necessary to speak. You certainly are free to. It's absolutely optional, but we want to make sure that if you have something you'd like to express, that we hear it. So please identify yourself before you speak.
My name's Corson, and I just want to thank the Planning and Zoning Commission for their 5-0 vote in favor of our plan. It's a dream of ours to have our daughter live next door to us. And I just want to give a shout out to Kip Jones's office. They were nothing but professional, courteous, helpful. They have helped make our dream come true, and I just can't say enough good things about Kip and his office. That's really what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from anyone else from the general public? Seeing none. Our actions today, by the way, are to either put these items on regular or consent agenda for next week. It doesn't change the timeline as far as what we do, so I think, the thing is, since it has some variance from the actual plan, I'm a little bit inclined to put it on regular just as a practice, but I'm not totally sold on that. I could certainly, if the other commissioners would like it on consent, I wouldn't mind that either.
Oh, I'm comfortable with regular, and just to clarify, it won't be next week, it'll be the week after.
I'm sorry, yeah, at our next, at the next meeting, you're quite correct. Commissioner Thompson?
I'm comfortable with consent, but if the commission majority would prefer regular, that's fine as well.
Okay.
I feel there's no opposition.
Yeah, I was, the things that impressed me was the lack of opposition, the unanimity of the Planning and Zoning Board. And like I say, apart from paying attention to what the Planning and Zoning Board says, certainly we have a lot of respect for the opinion and of staff. So I want to make sure that we are hitting all the bases, but in that case, 2021-307, 308, and 309 will appear on our regular agenda for our next meeting.
And, Commissioner, and just for clarity, that is with an approval on each.
Yes, I forgot about that, of course, with the proper box checked for approval. Thank you. 2021, 331, and 312 have been removed from the agenda, so we won't worry about those. That brings us to 2021-313. Acting Administrator.
Yes, Commissioner. This is a request to utilize ARPA funds from our Sheriff's Department for installation of cameras in some various areas, and we have Captain Amy Agadarian here to address.
Good afternoon, Commission. Captain Amy Agdarian, Clay County Sheriff's Office Administration Division. This request is for the use of ARPA funding to install some cameras in our detention training room and 2 conference rooms that would allow us to participate in Zoom meetings in a more efficient way. And so obviously with any ARPA request, we've worked with the Auditor's Office to make sure that we would be in compliance and that all of those requirements are met. This would allow us to have meetings at a distance. So keeping in the spirit of the CARES Act and now the ARPA funding, we are trying to maintain communications with other agencies, with vendors, with trainers and other programs, things like that, that we would be able to meet on our facility, but still be in contact with them. It reduces contact, it keeps the processes moving along efficiently, and it decreases the downtime that our personnel have in going out to meetings and possibly, outside the area trainings as well. So again, this is for our detention training room and 2 conference rooms, one upstairs in the Sheriff's Administration area and one in the Detention Administration area.
Very good. And the total cost of the request?
Oh, I apologize for that, my goodness. The total cost of this is $43,240 for all 3 cameras and installation.
And by the way, just to point out, obviously commissioners see it in their packet, but just for the information of the general public, included in the packet for these requests is the Clay County American Rescue Plan Act funding request form, which tells us that we have the approval of the Auditor's Department as far as his opinion that it would be in compliance with the parameters that we get the money under. So that's good to know. It sounds like a pretty reasonable thing to me. Comments from the other commissioners? Questions? Commissioner Carpenter?
No questions. I'm always happy when we're able to find uses for these funds, and this sounds like a good one. Thanks.
Commissioner Thompson?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Since this involves the expenditure of money, I think, does regular sound reasonable to everybody? Very good. 2021-313 will appear on our regular agenda at our next meeting. That brings us to 2021 Ordinance 45. Acting Administrator.
Yes, Commissioner, 2021 Ordinance 45 is a request from our Sheriff's Office to reappropriate and revise the 2021 budget in regards to their K-9 fund. And Captain Amy Agadarian is still at the podium.
Please proceed.
Clay County Sheriff's Office, Captain Amy Agdarian, Administration Division. I am really excited about this request. Late in the year, very, very recently, we learned that we have been awarded a grant by Firehouse Subs. This is actually the second time that the Sheriff's Office has been awarded this grant. We currently have a K-9, K-9 Blaze, and Firehouse Subs got the right to earn, or to name that dog. This is an additional grant from Firehouse Subs in the amount of $13,500 for purchase and handler training of a new K-9 for the Sheriff's Office. In order to accept the grant monies, we had to have a place to put it and then be able to put it into an expenditure line. So working again with the Auditor's Office, we have been working together a lot this year. It's been great. But working with the Auditor's Office, we determined the proper channels to make sure that we had a revenue line for this money and we could move it to an expenditure line. This canine is likely not to be able to be purchased until spring, when the kennels in Europe where we are going to be looking for this dog have dogs available to ship to the United States. So we're not looking to get the dog until then, but we did want to bring this request to you to revise the budget to have funds available to purchase then.
It's really something, the way these canine officers integrate and become part of the team. I still remember Ocho.
Oh, yes.
There was a lot of emotion, a lot of sentiment
Yes.
attached.
Osho's handler has a new canine now, so that's very cool.
With that, any questions from the commission? Commissioner Thompson?
No questions, but I agree with you. This is very exciting, and I'm very excited for you guys to get this. Do you know who would be the handler? Who would get to have the new dog?
We don't know for sure yet. There's a process. We'll have an internal process to identify and train that person.
Wonderful.
We have several people interested.
Awesome. No, I'm very excited, so no questions.
Commissioner Carpenter?
No, thank you.
I just want to check with the counselor, since this is not the expenditure, but the acceptance of funds. In your opinion, is this okay for us to go consent?
Certainly.
Very good. In that case, I would recommend that we go consent. Is there any discussion on that?
I'm good with that.
That's appropriate, yeah.
Actually, I wouldn't mind going the other way just for the opportunity to talk about the K-9 units some more, but we will put 2021 Ordinance 45 on consent for our next meeting.
Well, hopefully when the new dog comes in, maybe they'll come up and introduce them to us at the commission meeting.
I would hope.
I would hope that would
We
be.
would be happy to bring the whole crew up. I think we have three now.
Perfect.
Three, yeah. We'll bring them up here. It'll be chaos.
Put some snacks in my pocket, we'll be ready.
Well, there would be chaos, but the canines, well, I'm sure be just fine. It would be those of us on two legs that would probably be causing the chaos because of our excitement.
Clearly, because everybody wants to pet the canines. They're the best behaved in the room often.
Pretty much the deal.
Yeah.
That brings us to 2021-314. Acting Administrator?
Commissioner, 2021-314 is to approve a term and supply contract for the Sheriff's Department with the Hunt's Car Care Center for their vehicle maintenance. Captain Amy Agadarian is here to speak.
Please proceed.
Okay. Captain Amy Agdarian, Clay County Sheriff's Office, for my last agenda item today. This is the request to approve the term and supply bid for the Sheriff's Office vehicle maintenance with Hunt's Goodyear in Kearney, Missouri.
Very good.
And we went through the RFP process. Actually, Hunt's was the only vendor to respond, as I understand, but we have worked with Hunt's for several years and very comfortable with their response.
I was going to say, it seemed to me that we had a history with them, that was a positive history.
Yes, absolutely. We're fine with it.
Are there any questions from the commission?
No questions, thanks.
Would the commission like to go regular or consent on this item? I think I think we have some discretion on that. That doesn't need to go on regular, does it necessarily, Mr. Counselor?
Does not.
I feel comfortable with consent.
I am as well, yep.
Very well. 2021-314 will be on our consent calendar for our next meeting. Thank you very much for your information. That brings us to 2021 Ordinance 44. Acting Administrator.
2021 Ordinance 44 is a request from our County Auditor, Victor Hurlbert, to reappropriate and revise the current year's budget in regards to bond construction. And County Auditor Victor Hurlbert is here to address.
Please proceed.
Hey, yes, Commissioner. Victor Hurlbert, Clay County Auditor. Before you in 2021 Ordinance 44 is a number of budget items for year-end cleanup, so to speak. I will go through each one just to give a description and then open for any questions. So the first one on the first page deals with essentially budgeting what the commission agreed to with the refunding of the 2018 bonds in the 2021A series. As you recall, the 2018 bonds were never budgeted, and we had deliberations of, what we were going to do with them this year. So once we landed on what we decided to do, this accounting entry is essentially to budget all the expenditures to the escrow agent for defeasance of those bonds. And so in order for all these items, the idea is to not have an over-budget transaction in our financial statements, and so that's what the first one is in Fund 400. The second item on your second page is again also in our bond fund, Fund 400, but this one is for essentially budgeting in the current year, 2021, the 2021B bonds issuance. So we discussed in the proposed budget how we're budgeting them for next year, but this is for the current year to budget those proceeds. The third item is essentially a remaining balance we have from the 2021A refunding after the accounting entries that we just want to make sure we have enough budget for should that $16,000 be spent. The third item is in the Road and Bridge Fund 220. What we have here is essentially, this again goes back to the road district item. So we were in a difficult situation when we were balancing the 2021 budget of coming up with enough, making the adjustments to make the revenue that we knew of to balance the expenditures. And ultimately, when we made those corrections in the 2021 budget, we reduced a lot of the road district payments as much as we could. And we were very close. But as you can see, a lot of the property tax revenue that came in this year was proportionally more from the road districts or the incorporated area of the county by roughly 5%. And that is what requires us to make that trued-up payment. And so what we were doing here is using available revenues to be able to increase that expenditure budget and make all of those payments. On the third page, you have an item for the assessor's office. They're a little short on healthcare budget, and just based on personnel changes throughout the year, so we're adding that based on revenues. They had more revenues than anticipated, so we're able to fund it within the fund. And that's the case with all of these. They're all reappropriations within the fund. The second one there is with parks. They've had a little bit higher of credit card fees, just based on we've had so many visitors that they have higher transaction fees as a result. And so we increased some revenue from those visitors to be able to cover those credit card transaction fees. In the Law Library Fund, Fund 283, this was a recommendation from our external auditors that even though you have a statutory fund that's difficult to budget, not knowing the transactions, you still want to have a within budget year when you record all of your transactions after the end of the year. So that's what this does, is basically true it up, include those revenues. The same with the TMF. And then lastly, in our self-insurance health benefits fund, because of the changes this year with the increased costs, we just are truing up, again, the health benefits fund to make those payments, make sure we have enough budget to make it, even though there's enough cash. So that's essentially what these are. These are just end-of-year budget accounting fixes, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. There's certainly a good little bit here, but you've got a lot of plate spinning on this one, so it sounds like it's a good comprehensive list of what we need to do to kind of get everything sort of squared away as we approach the end of the year. Are there any questions of the auditor on 2021 Ordinance 44?
No questions.
No, other than, I assume each of these decisions has been signed off on by the relevant departments affected and consulted with them, or was this just internal to your office?
Consulted, yes. As to, signing the document, it's just a accounting officer operation. That's why we made those. But no, I mean, they're not signing this particular document, but they have been consulted, especially with the road district item. We did consult both the highway administrator and the deputy administrator. And so, yeah, that was our approach on these, and the collector for that item. So, yeah.
Gotcha. And just agreement with each of these changes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm a little bit inclined to recommend a regular agenda just because we've got a lot of money going back and forth here. I think that might be a better way to go. Commissioner Thompson?
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, I think regular makes sense.
Very good. 2021 Ordinance 44 will appear on the regular agenda at our next meeting. That brings us to 2021-310. Please proceed.
2021-310 comes from the Highway Department, is to approve the County Aid Road Trust Agreement with the Missouri Department of Conservation for those roads that fall within our conservation areas. And Deputy County Administration Carl Walters is here to address.
Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Commission. Carl Walters, Deputy Director of Administrations for Clay County. This is a recommendation from the Missouri Department of Conservation. I believe I brought it back to you, or first back in March, where the conservation area that they surround at the Coulee Lake down around Missouri City, we have the gravel roads, but they want to maintain the rock and stuff that's put onto it. So they have a fund that comes to them to allow some monies to be used on that road. So what they do is give us some recommendations on how many tons. The inspector comes out, tells us how many tons of rock we need to put on it. We go purchase the rock, we haul it out, we blade the road, and then they reimburse us for the rocks that we put onto the road. So that's basically where it's at. We do get our monies back from it. We put our time and labor into it and equipment, but they are our roads anyway. But then they're paying for the rock to be put on that road. So it's a good deal.
Are there any questions of Deputy Administrator?
No questions, thanks.
No questions, thank you.
Okay, very well. I don't know that, I don't have a particular, regular or consent, or what are the thoughts of the Commission?
I'm fine with consent.
I am as well.
Very well. 2021-310 will be on the consent agenda for our next meeting. That brings us to 2021-317. By the way, thank you, Deputy Administrator. Please proceed.
2021-317, and is an agreement between Clay County and the City of Liberty for an upcoming holiday event to take place, partly using the county property. And we have Carter Civic here to address the holiday event.
Exciting.
Please proceed.
Hello, Commission. Carter Sevick, Communications Manager for Administration. What you'll see before you is a revocable event license and request of county grounds use from the City of Liberty. Basically entails everything they're going to do with the upcoming Hometown Holidays event on Saturday, December 4th. There'll be some things going on the Rooney Justice Center Pavilion, as well as Santa will be here taking photos right here in the courthouse on floor 3, where we're at right now. So,
Very good, and this is something that is, has a history to it. We've been doing this several times in the past, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a long history of the Hometown Holidays event with historic downtown Liberty, and we've been working together in the past. Unfortunately, COVID kind of pushed it to a virtual event in the past as well, so we're excited to come back and do the physical event this time around.
Very good. Are there any questions from the commission?
Sounds like a great event. Thank you.
Okay, seeing none. Consent agenda, okay?
Perfect.
Very good. 2021-317 will appear on the consent agenda for our next meeting. And that brings us to the item that was added, 2021-319, Acting Administrator.
2021-319 is a request from our County Auditor, Victor Holbert. It approves authorization for the signatures who can sign for the county, and County Administrator, County Auditor Victor Holbert is here to address.
Thank you, Victor Hurlbert, Clay County Auditor. So Resolution 2021-319 is, as we discussed, to add to the agenda today. It's essentially to get the authorization that the trustee for our 2021B bonds requires authorized representatives to sign the requisition forms and to make those payments. And we've been waiting to make a lot of highway payments because we refunded the 2018 bonds. So by submitting this allows us to send those requisitions with the authorized signers on those requisitions. So that's really all it is. And again, the 2021B bonds close today, and so those funds are available for us to spend.
And once again, we are hearing this as this was added because of the immediacy required, the emergency nature of it. We've got a couple of different ways we can go. If we decide to put it on to be heard at our next meeting, that would mean it would not be signed until December 1, which is roughly 2 weeks. Can you give us, or the Deputy Administrator give us can you speak to the fact that waiting 2 weeks as opposed to generally we'd be waiting 1 week, or in fact doing it with immediacy today? Can you give us some background on why it would be much more advantageous for the county and for taxpayers to pass it now as opposed to 2 weeks from now?
Sure. So we have invoices that are due from a number of our contractors working on the bridges, and when we refunded the 2018 bonds, they essentially have been waiting the whole time to be paid. So we need to make those payments to be good on the terms of our contracts with them. We've obligated and encumbered a number of bridge projects, and that's essentially why we have the 2021B new bonds, is to continue those that we've incurred. So it's that, and then I think the other piece I would say is, in order for us to be in good standing with the state to continue to participate and get those, as I understand the credits and participate in the BRO program, we need to continue to pay our contractors and complete projects. So that's, I think, the urgency behind it that we would ask for passing today.
So yeah, I think you did a good job of outlining the public interest involved in considering voting on it today and enacting it today. Did the Deputy Administrator want to add anything further? I realize you had some good information for us at the beginning of the meeting when we placed it on the agenda. Very well. Deputy Administrators basically acknowledge that what the auditor said it pretty much takes care of it. With that, I'll just open it up for discussion with the commission. I think the commissioners, are pretty clear on what our alternatives are. Any discussion on where we should proceed?
No, just that I support. Go ahead and pass it today.
Commissioner Thompson?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. I'll tell you, do you want to go ahead and put that in the form of a motion? We'll go
Yeah, I'll
ahead.
move that we approve 2021-319.
A motion's been made for the approval of 2021-319. Discussion. I concur. I think it's important to go ahead and get this put together, not just because of the ability to keep our expenses in good standing and to keep our, to keep that rolling, but also with weather. You never know at this time of year when weather is going to turn nasty on us, so we need to make as much progress as we possibly can while we still have the weather to do it. Almost literally, it's a variation. We're not making hay while the sun shines, we're making bridges while the sun shines. Do you have anything you'd like to add or any questions, Commissioner Thompson?
No, thank you, I'm good.
Are there any comments from anyone from the public on this issue? Seeing none. Commissioner Carpenter, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes?
This item did require a unanimous vote. It required that unanimous vote, therefore it does pass. That brings us to the end of our regular agenda. Is there a motion related to our regular agenda that we have just concluded?
Commissioner, I move that we place the following items on next week, well, 2 weeks from now, on the consent agenda: 2021 Ordinance 45, 2021-314, 2021-310, and 2021-317, with each of the remaining items, excluding 311 and 312 that were removed, on the regular agenda for 2 weeks from today.
Motion has been made to move items from this week's regular agenda to our next meeting's regular and consent agenda as outlined by the motion. Discussion, Commissioner Thompson?
No, thank you.
Any comment from the public? Seeing none, Commissioner Carpenter, you are recognized to close.
I close?
Please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes?
Very well, that brings us to comments on non-agenda items. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on any items not on today's agenda? Seeing none. Are there any office holders who would like to comment on any items not on today's agenda? Seeing none. Are there any agencies who would like to comment on any items not on today's agenda? Once again, seeing none. That brings us comments from the county administrator. Acting administrator, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
No, I think I'm quite done tripping over titles, so I think I'm good. Thank you, Commissioner.
I feel your pain. That brings us to commissioner comments. Commissioner Thompson, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
I do. I have one today. So we're not going to have a meeting next week because it's going to be Thanksgiving. So I just want to wish everybody a very happy and safe Thanksgiving, and hopefully everybody can find a turkey and enjoy that.
Very good.
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Well, I would just like to extend the happy Thanksgiving wishes back to Commissioner Thompson and everybody else as well, of course.
I believe this is unanimous. The only problem that I have is this is our first week with that little chocolate candy bars. Is that is a consequence, I guess, of having left Halloween and now being into Thanksgiving? So I'm just saying, happy Thanksgiving to everybody and have a safe time, and I hope they enjoy the time with their families. With that, that brings us to the approval of minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes: October 20, 2021. Too many 20s on this one. October 20, 2021, 2 p.m. October 27, 2021, 5 p.m. October 27, 2021, 6 p.m. Is there a motion related to one or more of those sets of minutes?
I'll make it a motion to approve all 3 sets of those minutes that you just stated.
Motion has been made for the approval of the 3 sets of minutes listed on today's agenda. Discussion, Commissioner Carpenter.
No, thank you.
Very well. Any further discussion or comments? Seeing none, Commissioner Thompson, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Yes?
Yes.
That brings us to written reports. Are there any written reports to be submitted to the commission? No written reports to be submitted at this time. We have no executive sessions. Therefore, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.